Most mornings, my body wakes up like it's back in the ER. For the first 20 minutes, the pain is intense enough that if you drop me in an emergency room and ask what's your number, I'd say 10 out of 10 without blinking. At the same time, my spine surgeon is looking at my CT scan and telling me my L4 bone density is around 64 on the Hounsfield scale. Anything under 80 is considered severe osteoporosis. That means my bones are too fragile for the fusion surgery I actually need, at least for now. So this episode is about what life really looks like in that in-between space, why a spinal cord stimulator trial is even on the table, and how I'm trying to stay true to what I call my warrior code. Softly, quietly, but relentlessly there like water. My story starts the way a lot of back pain stories do. Lower back starts screaming. I end up in the ER. We do the MRI dance and someone says, "Looks like a bulged disc." I get sent to physical therapy. At first, physical therapy actually made things worse. We eventually figured out that I responded well to SI joint dysfunction therapy exercises. And once we shifted the exercises, things improved. The bulged disc mostly calmed down. Surgery wasn't on the table then, and I didn't seem warranted, so I went back to life. Meanwhile, in the background, I'd spent about 20 years on exogenous testosterone, trying to fight off osteopenia. That decision caught up with me as a pulmonary embolism. The cardiologist took me off testosterone completely and put me on Eliquis while my blood numbers settled down. I did what a lot of stubborn people do. I went back to living like I was 30. I traveled. I worked out. I pushed. But under the surface, my bones were quietly losing ground. Then one day, about 3.5 years ago, I was doing what should have been a normal warm-up at the gym. Nothing heroic. Later that day, the pain level hit a level I'd never felt before. That was my first real 10 out of 10 back to the ER. More scans, more x-rays, another trip back to Duke's Spine. This time the story was very different. The surgeon looked at my imaging and said, essentially, you've got severe lumbar spinal stenosis at L4, L5. Some spondylolisthesis, and the canal is basically pinched down. In plain English, the space where the nerves are supposed to live is being squeezed, and it's causing that severe radiating pain down my left leg. The numbness, the tingling, the boot with no feeling in my toes. We've tried more conservative things like acupuncture. I did multiple epidural injections. The first one gave decent relief. I hiked Machu Picchu after that one. The next one's less and less relief. The following epidurals last 14 and then 10 days, respectively. And then the pain was right back, knocking on the door like a big bad wolf. The turning point was when my surgeon pulled up my CT scan that measures the bone density in my L4 vertebra and adjacent vertebra. He used something called Hounsfield units, HU for short. Normal strong vertebrae are up in the 200s. The scan measured mine, and the surgeon said, "You're at 64. Anything under 80 is a severe osteoporosis." And then he said the words that really landed hard. "Right now, your bones are not strong enough for me to safely do a decompression and fusion at L4, L5. We talked through a plan. Step 1, work with endocrinology to aggressively strengthen the bone with medications. Step 2, consider a spinal cord stimulator, a trial first, to help manage the pain and keep me functional while we rebuild the vertebra bone density. Step 3, once the bone is stronger and those Hounsfield units numbers hopefully climb, we can revisit the idea of a decompression and fusion. Hearing I had severe stenosis and needed surgery was a different kind of pain. Hearing you probably have to wait years because your bones can't handle it yet, that was a deeper, quieter pain. The pain of losing independence and time. When I say wake up in ER level pain, here's what that actually looks like. When I first open my eyes, the pain is only a 3. Then I log roll out of bed and sit up on the edge of the bed. Sitting up in the bed, I start what has become my morning protocol. extra strength Tylenol, oxycodone 10-325, and hydromorphone, and then the rest of the morning supplements and slowly standing up. Now the pain is a 9 or a 10 out of 10. The first 20 minutes, it feels like my back and legs are made of fire and concrete at the same time. Then I shuffle to the bathroom to apply the ketamine ointment and a thin layer of steroid cream over the worst areas. Back to the bed to finish dressing. I'm at about 20 minutes into the morning. The edge starts to come off. I can stand a little more upright. I make my way down the stairs, slowly guarding my spine. No bending, no lifting, no twisting. I live like I'm recovering from a fusion I haven't had yet. If the pain drops under a 7, I try to steal a bit of normal life. I'll sit on the couch with a cup of coffee and catch up on the news. If I feel like walking to the kitchen, I'll watch my 3-year-old granddaughter enjoy her breakfast. If I can, I stay there until the family leaves for daycare and work. Those are the moments that keep me going. That's where the warrior code shows up for me, not in big dramatic gestures, but in quietly showing up for breakfast when my legs are burning and my back is clamping. By late morning, things are a toss-up. Some days the pain hovers around a 6 out of 10. Other days it spikes if I move too much or not enough. I reapply the ketamine ointment and keep an eye on the clock and try not to let everything lock up. This is when I try to be a person who isn't just a patient. I log my body composition and my food. I pull in the numbers from Apple Health. I work on scripts like this one. If the pain is manageable, I'll set up the camera and film a bit, or shoot some B-roll. Around noon, I take another oxycodone. That usually helps the pain in the I can function zone, which for me is still around a 6 on a good day. If errands need to be run or something around the house needs to be done, early afternoon is my window. I've learned that being a warrior here doesn't mean pushing to the point of collapse. It means pacing. It means doing what I can at 60% instead of waiting for a mythical 100. By mid-afternoon, the seams start to pull again. I'll do another round of ketamine ointment around 2:30. Using the drugs to stay ahead of the pain is something you learn to appreciate and plan for. By 4:30, I'm pretty wrung out. Unless I add some extra strength Tylenol around 5:30, I put on the last ketamine of the day, and at 6 p.m. I take my evening oxycodone. Usually by that point, the pain is back, up around a 7 out of 10. A hot shower helps more than I can describe. By 9 p.m., I'm in bed. I read, I adjust pillows, I pay attention to my spine position. It's not glamorous, it's not a heroic montage, but this is what staying in the fight looks like for me right now. The warrior code for me isn't about pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about being soft and quiet but relentless, like water tearing down rock. So where does the spinal cord stimulator come in? Somewhere in the middle of all this, my team at Duke said, look, your bones are too fragile for fusion right now, but we do have another tool, a spinal cord stimulator. We can do a temporary trial, put in leads, collect you to an external unit, and see how much relief you get. The usual benchmark people talk about is around 50% of pain relief. If you hit that or better, it's considered a good sign that a permanent implant might be worth it. My expectation going into this is to aim high, hope for more than 50%, because that would be life-changing. But I'm also preparing myself for the reality that even just hitting that 50% mark would be a huge win for the quality of my days. In the next episode, I'm going to take you through what that SCS trial actually looks and feels like, how they place the leads, what are the restrictions, what it feels like to have your pain rewritten by electricity, and how I measure whether it's worth committing to something permanent. If you're walking a similar path, severe stenosis, fragile bones, living on meds and routines, my hope is that seeing this process might give you a few more tools and maybe a little more courage for your own journey. We don't always get to choose those battles. We can choose the way we show up for them. I'll see you in episode 5.